Welcome back to the channel, and if you haven't noticed, FOMO is setting in with all these DCU projects announced by James Gunn. You're not going to be able to find The Authority. You're certainly not going to be able to find Grant Morrison's Batman run. Hopefully Swamp Thing's sold out, because that's actually an amazing comic book. People should all read that one. And you're talking to me about the FOMO setting in, and if now is the right time to buy or sell and all that good stuff. Is Doc. How you doing, Doc?
I am great, sir. Thank you for having me here, and it is wonderful to see DC get some of that Marvel film hype effect on the market.
Well, it's not really DC. It's the people that have the comic books. They're absolutely making a killing here right now, Doc. These are some of the numbers that we do know. Batman 655, the first appearance of Damian Wayne, son of Talia al Ghul and Bruce Wayne, and the beginning of Batman and Son storyline by Grant Morrison and Andy Kubert. Sold for $500 slab by CGC, 9.8 this week. That is an amazing number. The Authority #1 from Warren Ellis and Brian Hitch. First appearance of the Doctor and the Engineer. Sold raw for $90. $550 for a slab CGC, 9.8. All-Star Superman #1, 1 in 10 variant from Neil Adams. CGC graded 9.8, sold for $300 on eBay after the announcement. 3 times what it sold the previous week. The FOMO is in, Doc, and the prices are absolutely soaring.
You know, it is nice to see. Historically, Marvel's gotten a lot of this hype with back issues starting to build up right after announcements. This is the first time that I recall DC getting kind of the same treatment. You didn't have this effect on, Wonder Woman or Aquaman or even the Flash whenever they were getting announced.
But the difference is, Doc, they never actually said which comic books were inspiring those movies. The only time I can remember DC doing that was with the Batman movie from Matt Reeves.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you weren't going to really get that effect for a lot of the, Snyderverse era DC characters because, well, I mean, let's be honest. First appearance of Batman, first appearance of Wonder Woman, first appearance of Superman, first appearance of the Flash. They're already
unattainable.
Yes, they are already stupid expensive books. There's no space for hype, and there's no real market for them unless you are a 7, 8, 9 figure earner on the annual. There's not really a space for them to get that effect. So now that they're kind of announcing some smaller projects with more attainable books like The Authority #1, All-Star Superman, first appearance of Damian Wayne. These are all much more relatively newer books with higher availabilities that are able to be found on the open market. And now you're getting the opportunity to see how, the way that like the Civil War issues spiked up whenever they announced Captain America Civil War. And you never had that with the Snyderverse. So now that you have, James Gunn announcing a slate, and announcing projects with characters and comics that are related to it that are much more contemporary, a little bit more readily available on the market, and at much more attainable prices. I think it is good. But now
it's good for you, Doc. People don't know this. You have a complete run of The Authority.
Oh, yeah. I have a complete
Not reprints. We're talking all originals.
Yeah, I have a complete run of all of the entire Wildstorm universe. So anything you add in from Wildstorm, I'm already on.
So The Authority could probably fetch you a few $1,000s right now, Doc. Are you tempted?
No, not really. Although I do have a couple of copies of Authority #1, including a slab 9.6.
Hey, that's a few pennies here and there. You're not even considering it because that's your favorite comic book universe ever.
Yes, absolutely. It is my favorite comic book universe.
Here's the big question, Doc. People that are getting the FOMO and they're going out there and spending $500 for a first appearance of Damian Wayne, $300 for a special All-Star Superman #1. What are the chances that these comic books actually, over the long haul, hold their value and actually maintain or even increase in value over time? Obviously, right now is the peak because the information has just gotten out there and people are feeling the FOMO. But as I mentioned, these movies aren't going to be out for 2-3 years at the earliest.
Well, this isn't really the peak. This is the first peak. We have to find out whether or not the DC movies are going to follow a similar trend to the Marvel movies. One is the initial bump and hype and the initial instance of FOMO that happens whenever the books get announced. And then that is the furthest one, and that's the first big jump. Then historically, the Marvel books have then dipped back down, probably to, if they tripled in value, they'll come back down by about 30 to 40%. And they kind of plateau there and up and down a little bit until you get a actual casting announcement. That's when you start seeing the second big jump. And then the final big jump, you get the same little bit of a drop off. So you keep kind of building up and building up and building up. And then you get the final big jump whenever the trailer gets, first released. And now there's actual film and people can see whether or not they think it's going to be a big hit. Now, that's when kind of the determining factor hits of, does it look really good? And if it looks really good, you're probably only going to see about a 10% drop off, 20% drop off after that. Now you probably are already like, 5 times what it was before because of the previous peaks and valleys. But if it looks like crap, it starts plummeting back towards your original like kind of value. Now it's never going to quite get there. It's never going to be worth the same. I think if you missed the boat on this already, assuming it follows the same trajectory, wait about 2 months. You're still going to pay more than you did last week. And
you're talking about buyers, not sellers right now.
I'm talking about buyers. You're going to, if you wait about a month or two, you're going to see it come down. It's not going to come down. You're not going to be able to buy it for the same price you did before, but you're not going to be getting taken advantage of at the current peak, but you're still going to want to buy before the first casting announcement.
So if you're a seller, Doc, and you could potentially be a seller, like I said, you have all these authority comic books and you have a couple of extra issues of number 1. You say don't sell it right now, even though there's a peak. Wait for the casting announcement for the second big spike in value. But if you wait for the third one, you're taking more risk on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with each of them, you're taking a little bit of risk. You're also potentially maximizing
because the project might get canceled.
The project might get canceled. It might get altered. We've seen DC does not exactly have the most stellar history with getting, movies announced, casted, created, and released according to their announced plans. They have a poor track record on that. So there's always the possibility that it never even gets the casting, or, it's a Batwoman or a Batgirl situation where it literally gets axed. Now, granted, that's pretty unlikely, but
or the casting is really, really strange and it turns people off immediately.
Exactly. And that's the risk you take each time. The first time you took no risk in having the book beforehand, but you are taking a risk buying it at the peak right now. Yes, holding it right now. You take the risk that the casting is just weird, wrong, rejected by the audience. And now you have the risk of it, again, coming back down closer to what its previous value was. And then you have the opportunity for the trailer to look like ass. So each time you're taking a bigger risk, but there is a bigger potential reward for sellers out there.
FOMO gets a hold of all of stock. I know you've been a comic book collector for a long time. Do you have a story where you were just taken over by FOMO? And, whether you felt good or bad at the end, it just got the better of you.
Oh, absolutely. Last year, prices were starting to get really, really stupid on certain books. I spent a little too much on my ASM 300. That book has started really coming back down to earth.
I remember that when all of a sudden everybody wanted like a really good copy of it, ASM 300. It's like, that's like one of the most printed comics in the world.
Exactly. And I definitely fell into the FOMO on that one because I really, really wanted a nicer copy. I had a really ratty copy that I wanted to get a really nice copy. But I also didn't want to buy slabbed. I definitely overpaid by probably 30 to 40% for what it's worth right now because the book has come back down to earth. In the long run, I don't plan on selling this book anytime soon. In the long run, it's going to, recover and I'll make my money back. So I'm not really concerned about it. if you got the patience to hold for a long time, then yeah, even the worst buys won't really necessarily bite you too hard. I also had the FOMO of this is when I was going to part with some books. I waited too long on the Civil War announcement to send in my Michael Turner
graded.
Yes, to send in all of my Turner variants to get graded and probably part with. And by the time I finally got them back from CGC, the movie was out and I had missed the boat.
Well, that's too bad, Doc. You want to be able to plan ahead for these things. You knew Civil War was happening?
I knew it was happening, but I just took too long. I waited like 2 months to send these friggin' books in, and CGC's turnaround time at the time was really, really poor, and I ended up just eating some costs. Now I got a bunch of really nice looking graded slabs in my collection that I'm perfectly fine with keeping, but I totally missed the boat on it.
Doc will tell you, FOMO gets the best of all of us. When you're a comic book collector, when you're deep in the hobby and you love these characters and these universes, you get caught up, Doc. That's just how it is.
Absolutely. But if you're patient, have no problem holding books for a long time, you'll recover your money. It's not a big deal. You overpaid now, but in the long run, it'll work out.
But if you want the comic books, do not wait for the casting announcements because it's going to keep growing.
Unless you think that they're going to really butcher the casting, wait about a month, 2 months, buy it, and enjoy.
Also, if you're not so much a collector, like you're not looking to acquire these things as investments or whatever, but you really want to have your own copy of the materials themselves, they are sold out and they are not currently in print, any of these comic books. But DC Comics has said they are going to go back to print. So if you wait a few months, maybe 6 months to a year, those collections are going to be reprinted and you're going to be able to get them at cover price. Don't get absolutely bent over on eBay for a trade or an omnibus or something like that, because these are going to go back in print in time to be ready for the movies to come out.
Absolutely. DC has been historically significantly better at this, with having available collections whenever a movie's really coming out. They missed the boat on the announcement and having them in print, but at the same time, by the time they get to the casting announcements, the trailers, they're going to have this stuff in print. It's going to be readily available. Do not get bent over on this, because look, there's 100,000 copies of all the Authority trades or all of the All-Star Superman trades. You can find them at half price books. You can find them in, you don't necessarily have to buy new copies of trades. You're going to find them available all over the place and you'll be able to do fine. And if you just are patient, you can wait. Hell, if you're really impatient, sign up for DC's, online, their DC Digital Unlimited or Ultimate or whatever the hell, Infinite, whatever the hell they call it.
DC
just read
Universe
it digitally.
Infinite,
Yeah.
But remember, if you're new to this, and maybe you're not really aware, the trades don't have value and don't increase in value over time and hold it like the actual comic books themselves.
Yeah.
Do not think of them as similar.
Trade paperbacks do not hold value. The only time you will ever get any sort of collected edition that has value is if it's the absolute editions and it's the first printing of them. My Absolute Authority volume 1 and 2 that are first printing, they've held their value versus the reprints of it that have all dropped. But you're dealing with a very small market of people that actually give a damn about first printings of collected editions. That's an even smaller percentage of buyer market than people that actually give a damn about first printing on anything.
I hope that you're enjoying the announcements, and if you're caught up in the FOMO, I want you to be able to avoid scams. In fact, Doc and I, a week or two ago, talked about scams in comic books, the ways that you can identify comic books that have been altered, stuff like that. Definitely check this one out because you don't want to be taken over, spend good money on a bad comic book and absolutely get ripped off. Definitely check this video out here. There's also a link in the video description.